Good morning. Hello from Rockstar HQ. And let's see if I get this the right way around. Yeah, there we are. This is the gorgeous Allison Christie from Tick the List. Good morning, my darling. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. So we are coming in today to talk about Gdpr. I got them in the right order, didn't I?
You did. Well done. You passed.
I keep going GP. So, if you're joining us live, jump on in, say hi, let us know that you're around, let us know who's watching. And I would love to take a little bit of a straw poll to start us off. Who knows very much about this? Because, you know, I know that it's happening. I haven't got a lot of meat on the bones yet because I come from a legal background, and I know the things that with legislation are that they'll play out a whole lot before they actually come into play. So I have avoided it a little bit up until now.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know who knows something about it, who doesn't know anything about it, who's going, I don't even know what you're talking about. Let us know where you are with this. What I want to say at the very beginning, as I'm from a legal background, is that if you are at all unsure about the content of this webinar or the way that it will impact and implement it within your business, then it is really important that you seek independent legal advice or accounting advice or descriptive advice on how that will go forward, particularly individually for your business. What we're going to do here is we're going to go through the principles of what it's about. We're going to talk about what we'll be doing to start to look at this within our own businesses, but if you are at all unsure, take your own advice, because we're not sat here dictating to you what you should and shouldn't be doing on this. We're not giving you masses of advice on this. We're telling you our take on it, and we're telling you what we're doing with it, but then it is up to you to look into this further if you feel confused or like it just doesn't make sense to you. But we will try and demystify what it's all about and go from there. So I'm going to pop in and see. Right, so we've got Kathy saying, I know nada. Oriel says, I know it's happening, but nothing more than that. Tina says, nope. Jenny says, I had YMCA tune going through my head.
I saw that. GDPR.
Oh, you could do a little song on this.
You think so?
Yeah. I think there's scope and capacity for that. Becky says, I know a fair bit, but don't have a policy or procedure in place yet. MJ says, a tiny bit as my day job is payroll. Val says, morning. Morning, Val. I know a tiny bit, but not nearly enough, says Angela. Christina said, yay, morning, ladies. Hi,
Christina. Hello.
Maxine says, no idea. So do you want to start us off, Alison, and give us a little overview? Even let's start with what do the letters even mean?
Okay, so General Data Protection Regulations. Yeah, I know. Basically, if you think about it, the old data protection rules that we have in place just now are 20 years old now, and the way that we use information now has changed massively. I mean, there's so much online, hugely. So it's kind of it's just bringing it up to date, though, isn't it? It's just bringing up to date how we process information now, how we use it, where we have it. We have it on smartphones, we have it on laptops, iPads, everywhere. So it's just kind of bringing it up to date as to what we should be doing with it now. Because I think before we always used to think about data protection in paper files or in filing cabinets or on spreadsheets, but that's the difference. That's really all that it comes down to, I suppose, is just bringing it up to date.
Yeah, it's inclusive now of digital data in a much bigger way. You know, if you look at 20 years ago and, you know, I was just starting in the legal profession. I know I don't even look that old, but
just do that then. Just going to say that.
Yeah, but, you know, data insofar as how we kept data, you know, we did still have Rolodexes. We did still have filing cabinets. We did still have, you know, all sorts of information that was paper-based and just facts and shit. And why the internet?
And dictaphones and things like that, you know, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, it's bringing it all up to date. And what do you think are the main takeaways at the moment?
Yeah, I have 4 main bits that when I kind of go through all the stuff and all the things that I've been looking at for my own business and all the rest of it. So 4 main areas. Yeah, all in the book. See, look, it's right here. It's right here. Shameless plug.
Always a shameless plug.
So we have 4 main things that I come up with. The first one being data. The second one, we can go through them in order, but yeah, the first one being data. The second thing being consent. The third thing being compliance, and the last thing being security. Not in any particular order, but that's the kind of 4 things that when I go through it all, they all come under one of those kind of things. Yeah, even though it's data protection, it does go into security and how secure your phone is and all those kind of things as well. So
data, what do we actually mean by data? What does that really and truly mean?
So when it comes to GDPR, the data protection regulations, so anything, I know, just got to call it Bob.
We should do it with spangly jazz hands to make it more exciting.
And maybe just sing it every time we do it in the kind of YMCA style, and then, yeah.
You've got it all going.
So, yeah, when you think about data, it's kind of anything that you have that you store about people. So it can be as little as a phone number, because that's connected to that person. It can be just an email address that's connected to that person. It's anything that you have that belongs to somebody else, but you have it, I suppose. That's, yeah, it doesn't need to mean you've got a full spreadsheet that says who this person is and their name and their address and, all sorts of details about them and what they had for breakfast and all that stuff. It can just be their phone number.
Yeah.
You give me a ring, let's talk. Well, then you've got their name and their phone number. So that in itself is what I take to be, personal information.
Okay.
And data. And something that you have stored somewhere.
And from data, you then talked about, what was the second one? I've got them all in the wrong order now in my head.
Data, consent, compliance, and security.
Consent. So this is a really interesting one. And I know that we've always talked about list building and it being an opt-in basis and it being consent-based. And there's this fine line as well, isn't there, between expressed consent and implied consent?
Yeah, and that's when you start getting into the giving legal advice that, you don't know everyone's data, you don't know how they're doing things, so you can't say this means consent and this doesn't mean consent. It's kind of, consent, generally, isn't it? It's what... Yeah. What is consent,
And how are you interpreting that in your kind of look at what that even means?
Yeah, so for me, and when I look at my mailing lists and what I'm doing is any newsletters that I'm doing from now on, which I'm not doing enough of, I know it's in my book. I know, it's in my book. But any ones that I'm doing from now on, I'm going to be adding on, by the way, you're on my mailing list. You could always unsubscribe at any time, but just so you know, if you want to rejoin a mailing list, then you'll be getting newsletters and telling you might get offers about services or future products or online products or anything like that. You can opt into this new one and then start a new list. So then you have been, for me, I feel that that's the way that I would be sure I'm doing as much as I can to say, well, that to me is consent. That's kind of a reasonable effort to say these people consented to what I said I was going to do.
Okay. So it's like an actual cleanse of your newsletter, effectively.
Yeah. So for me, I feel that's the safest way of doing it, because then I know I've taken reasonable steps. It's not just somebody signed up for a freebie and then they went on a newsletter list. So, that's kind of where it gets quite difficult, because you offer someone a freebie or a special offer or an opt-in for something, and then they go on your newsletter list, and that's always been that implied thing. But if someone says to you, I didn't ask to go on that list, could you prove that they did?
Well, yeah, particularly when you've been in business for a long period of time. So I even have a list from a previous newsletter software. So I have a list that came in from my old MailChimp software, and I've been in business for 7 years.
Yeah.
So actually, I can't paper trail now every single one of those sign-ups. So I think that for a lot of us, we're going to have to go back to the beginning, really.
Yeah, and
we have to go through every opt-in and make sure that it says on the bottom of it, please note by involved in this, you will get my newsletter. And do you think that that is enough to say at the bottom of each subscription, or do you think they then have to sign up again?
For me, it's a case of what I want to do is sign up, do that kind of, do you want to be on this, do you want to be on a list in the future? If they go yes, then it's a double opt-in and they're on a new list. So that's a yes, I've said so, yes, I've confirmed, I definitely know what I'm signing up for. And that to me is me making a reasonable effort as a business owner to say, I've got a paper trail, I've got enough, I can prove, you know, if anyone was to ever question that they didn't ask to go on that list, say, well, you did get that, you did say yes, then you opted in, so...
You clicked that, you clicked that.
Yeah, so that to me is enough. And you can still unsubscribe at any time, obviously, but, you know, that to me is enough to prove that I made an effort, I suppose.
And do we have to do this retrospectively? Like I'm saying, you know, I've got this really old list that, you know, some of them are actually very, very engaged, some of them aren't so engaged. Are we doing this retrospectively as well as moving forwards?
I would, yeah, I would. And I know there's a lot of people that think, but I'm going to lose people from my list. And that, I know, where you are in this, because it's something, I've seen you speaking about in different topics and lives and things before. So it comes down to what are you losing?
Yeah.
They don't belong to you. That information, that person doesn't belong to you. That information doesn't belong to you. It's if they don't want to be on your list, they're not going to be your customer. So why?
So would you go so far as, you know, my thoughts on it are that I do this over kind of a month's period.
Yeah.
And that my list is cleansed as far as possible prior to May.
Yeah.
Do I then delete all of those old lists so that I'm not even holding their data, let alone using it?
So that gets into the other topic of how long do you archive data for, and that comes down to your insurance and all those kind of things, doesn't it? You know, how long you say you archive data for, and that is something, you probably all need to get your own advice on too, because that's, depends what your business is and what your requirements are. I don't know if, you know, people have different registrations with professional bodies, and if that means they have to keep data for a certain amount of time and things too. So that's a whole other kind of part of it, you need to take into account too.
That's a funny one, because do I then have to hold on to data that doesn't comply to the new data protection regulations?
Well, I suppose if you think about it, if you took someone off your list, I know. But if you think you took someone off your list, well, then you can kind of prove that you took them off because they used to be on and now they're not. So,
yeah.
And
then the next one was...
so complying.
Right.
So anyone that's dealing with data should be registered as a data controller with the Information Commissioner's Office, because you are controlling data. So you can, I know. So it means it's £35 a year just now, but
that's much more, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I presume that is literally a go online and fill out a form.
Yeah, it is. Go online, fill out a registration form, pay your fee, and then you get your certificate to say that you are registered as a data controller. And then obviously all the information is online in the Information Commissioner's Office website too. So you know what it includes and what that means, and all the guidance that's available so far on what you need to do to comply as well is all there.
The lawyer in me immediately goes, I actually don't control anybody's data, because their data is held away from my own systems. So it's all in, for example, the newsletter software. It's in, you know, it's with these providers and those providers and these providers. So I don't physically hold any data on my hard drive of my computer.
That's where it gets really interesting. That is where it gets so interesting, because this goes back to the first point, the data. So one of the things I've been doing as well is doing just a bit of an audit of where I hold all the data that I have. So things like, you might have, as I said before, a spreadsheet. You might have a MailChimp mailing list. You might have stuff that comes through your website. People sign up through a sign-up form, all those kind of things. And initially you would think that doesn't mean you hold that data, but actually you do, because it's your MailChimp account, it's your website account, once you get into kind of auditing where you hold personal information, there's then another level, which is how are you controlling that data? So where is it being stored? Is where it's being stored compliant with GDPR? If it's in the EU, yes, it will be. But if it's not held within the EU, if it's held in America, for example, you then get into the rules in America, the Privacy Shield and all the rest of it too. So even though you can say it's not held, it's held within a system, you're still responsible for knowing if that system complies.
Okay, so is that about you then going to your system provider and saying, please can you confirm that you comply with GDPR?
Yeah, and you'll find different levels within different services as well. Not saying that they don't comply, but if you just take something like Dropbox as an example, there's different levels. You can have a personal account, you can have different levels of business account, and there might be differences between different levels as well. So you need to know what you're paying for and whether that level is one that's compliant or not too.
Because again, they're going to take you up to the top level to be completely compliant, aren't they?
I think so. And there's still a lot of companies. I mean, there's a huge amount of companies. They've got, 3+ months before this becomes the 25th of May that this comes into force. So they've got 3+ months. So there's a lot of them that are in that we're committed to complying with GDPR, but it's not there yet. So you can't quite be sure. So there's a lot of...
And there's the potential that we're going to have to move data. And again, it is another one of those of actually, again, where is this company registered? Because I know that I use Simplero, which initially was a Denmark-based company, therefore in the EU. Mm-hmm. But actually lots of its mailings is now coming out with an American address attached to it.
So where are the servers and where is that information stored and what rules is that information storage under as well? That's when it gets, I know.
It's one of those legislations that feels like it's positioning you to trip up.
I suppose it's so huge though, isn't it? I've seen lots of blogs that are on kind of two different camps. You get people saying, oh, I'm not going to do anything, it'll be fine, it'll all just, fall into place in the things that we do and it'll be okay. And then you got other people who are going to dotting every I, and crossing every T and making sure they've got everything they ever might need to know in their business covered. And it kind of seems to be, that's what I'm seeing just now. I'm not seeing the kind of the middle ground of just the basics of what you need to know and what you need to start finding out for yourself. When you've got 3 months, you can do a lot in 3 months.
I think that it's probably now about looking at bringing together a little bit of a list of all the things that you need to consider and starting to implement some of those. And it being really obvious on your sign-up pages, that's a job to do. Being really obvious with your terms and conditions and policies of what it's actually about.
Policy in place, because you might have your terms and conditions and your website policy, but bolting on a data protection policy as well. So you say where your information is stored and how you comply with GDPR, and then also if you're using an American company that's part of the Privacy Shield, kind of bringing that into things as well, I suppose. I know.
Absolutely. And then the other one that you had before was
security, my favourite.
You are the absolute legend when it comes to...
I love my internet security.
And, what do we need to think about when we're coming to this?
So one of the big things that I take out of what I've seen so far is encryption. Yeah. So when I'm on a Mac, that's pretty easy to go into your hard drive and make sure that's encrypted. It's just a few clicks and you're done. I don't know about other computers, but your iPhone or your whatever phone you're using, I know an iPhone is pretty easy to encrypt. You can do that, and then when you're in your settings, it says data protection is enabled, so you've done it. other phones will have different ways of encrypting as well, so that then if anybody gets your phone and you've got business data on it, something like an email address or a phone number or anything like that, you're taking reasonable efforts to make sure it's safe because it's encrypted.
But it's even like having your calendar sync to your phone, have client names on it.
Yeah.
So your phone, as soon as it has anything attached to it, has client data on it. Whether that's your Facebook account, your Twitter account, your calendar, your Dropbox, all of them kind of things, that is absolutely looking at your data again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's down to the personal data and the kind of the steps you're taking to reasonably protect it, and to be able to show. I mean, if you're ever audited, you need to be able to show that you've done this and you've done that, and you've tried as much as you can to keep it secure and to comply with everything you need to do.
Cool. And security.
Backups as well, and your virus and your malware and your ransomware and all that kind of things, making sure you've got all of that in place and you've got your stuff protected too. Be safe, be seen.
So we've got, let's have a look what people are saying before we go any further on it. Let's get back. Okay. So, Anna could listen to your voice all day long, Alison.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you, Anna.
Claire says, I'm planning on sending out a newsletter asking if people want to still be on my list as I'm implementing my GDPR procedures. Would you go back and change from the date or would you change from the date or go backwards? I think that's what we talked about with retrospective.
Yeah.
And, I think that unless you've got the best systems in place right now where you can prove exactly where everybody has come from.
Yeah. Because people, that's the thing as well. I mean, all of these kind of 4 topics, they kind of skirt around some of the main bits, I suppose, which is that people have the right to ask for their information. I don't know if you saw it, there was on LinkedIn, there was somebody who had put a letter that they might potentially submit once GDPR is in place. It says, "Dear so-and-so of such and such a company, I'd like to know what information you hold on me. So where's my personal data held? What personal data do you hold?" What kind of goes through all of the things that they could ask you, and you've got 40 days to respond. So that's why you need to do all of these things. So you can say, well, I know my information is stored in such and such a server. It's within the EU, so yes, it's under GDPR and all these kind of things. So yeah, it's the kind of the what might happen, I suppose. It's the someone could come and ask you, and someone can also come and ask to have their information removed from all of your systems. So how do you know where to remove it from unless you know where it is?
Totally. When you're thinking about having that perpetrator, do we know as yet what the penalties are for non-compliance?
I think, are they not unlimited? There's some figures, but there's some figures to do with 4% of annual turnover or a certain amount of thousands of pounds, but I can't remember offhand if they're for special category data or normal data, but I think they're I think it's unlimited.
What falls into special category data?
Special category data is things related to health and religious beliefs and political beliefs and things like that. And health is a question marky one for me, because I don't know. There's clients that I work with who might have information that's health related. So I'm like, is that health or is that, health, well-being, that kind of stuff? That's a question mark one for me just now.
Yeah, and I think if you do anything within the health and wellness sector, it's one that you do need to get additional support with to make sure that you're complying. Yeah,
and if you have special category data, then I think that needs to stay in the EU as well. Mm-hmm. So you can't have that going out elsewhere to a system that might store email addresses or names or anything like that outside the EU, I think.
Okay.
Again, and that's one of those,
there's a lot of grey, and I know that when people first started talking about this, I said, actually, I'm not going to invest any time in it as yet, because I know from experience, from my background, that a whole shitload more plays out on this before it actually is implemented and becomes, you know, something that we have to then comply with. And I think it will continue to add meat to the bones.
Yeah.
Will probe and press it, and probably after its implementation we'll get more information, which isn't helpful. But you know, as people start to trip up and some jobs worth finds it a really exciting job to go and pull apart people's data.
And then you've got the case law and the things that might come out of it too, that might change things or change how we have been doing things too. So it is. And there's still consultation going on just now. I think the only one that's still live is on children and children's data, and whether children under 16, you know, their kind of personal data too. So that's a whole other.
Yeah, so if you've got any children data, again, that's another one that needs special.
Yeah. And also children on their own, under 16s on their own, if they're using a device or they, you know, giving their email address or anything like that to something, what they know about consent, or if they can or can't give it, and all those kind of, you know.
So should we even have a box that says, I confirm that I am over 18?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Because, you know, we all, you know, there's certain things that we do go through on websites and things, and it's like you've got to tick a box that you're over 18, or when you go on, you know, to certain TV channels and things.
Yeah.
It is literally ticking a box, and you think, well, if my kids were sat there watching it, they would just tick the box. So actually, it's not bloody good anyway, but it's protecting your butt.
Yeah, it's protecting you as a business. You did ask the question, so you can't. Yeah.
All you can do above that is that. Jenny says, when I'm doing giveaways, I always put a separate tick box for newsletters. Claire says, how are you doing yours, Alison? Are you on MailChimp? I think that you've mentioned that you're sending out and asking people.
Sending out from now on, just sending out and asking people. Not that, I've done many newsletters lately, but sorry. But yeah, sending out and asking, yes, do you want to stay on? And then kind of linking them through to a new list, so that then they have to double opt in as well, and then go on a new list. So then, you know, come GDPR, that's your new list. That's the one, you know, that people have said they definitely want to be on.
And it'll be dead exciting because your open rates will be massive. Because people were really invested. Yeah. Because people, if they're going to click, you know, through to say yes, they want to be on it, and then do a double opt-in, they're far more likely to open your emails anyway. So, And my intention probably is that once a month over the next 3 months, I will send out a solo mail saying that's from me. Only people that are on this list, click here. Are going to receive any correspondence from me, and also have it at the bottom of regular newsletters as well.
Yeah. And I think you'll find the closer it gets, the more and more people are doing that. So if you're sitting in your email box, another one to click. So that's when you might find you lose people, because they're just seeing so many of them. So we're probably better to start doing it now before there's more of a, yes, I'll stay on.
Well, actually, it's great as well, from a personal perspective, to get rid of some of the shit that you don't want in you. You know, if we're not looking at it's always been good practice, isn't it, to have a bit of a trawl through your lists and do that kind of thing. But this is just really not forcing people to do it, but just kind of making you do what probably was always a good idea. Yeah, absolutely. Jane said, ICO registration is super easy. Anna says, how does it apply to third parties like MailChimp? It'll be about what they are coming back and telling you. I would imagine that some companies will put out a release of, this is our policy and procedure on GDPR. Whether that is now or whether that is the middle of May will depend on each individual company, I would imagine. Some of them, you're going to have to ask for it.
Exactly, some of them you're going to have to ask for, and if you go on some of them and look up, do a search and do kind of look at the terms and conditions or what they're doing, they might kind of say they've got a commitment to meeting GDPR in a blog or in a statement somewhere, but what that actually means is something you need to go and ask.
So
Some might say commitment, but it's only on certain products, or it's across everything, or yeah, that's the kind of bits you need to know about.
Yeah, and you then probably need to keep a secure document folder with all of your information on that in, so that the paper trail is there.
Yeah, yeah. So that then you know, yeah, if you're ever to be asked, then you know, or I know where all the information is, and I know, yeah, that it complies. Yeah.
Claire says, am I right in thinking that IP addresses fall under GDPR too?
Personal information, yeah. People, you can identify people from it, so yeah. So yeah, where your website is hosted and all those kind of things comes into it too. Is it hosted within the EU? If it is, it will be GDPR compliant come May. If it's not already, what's your hosting company saying about GDPR too? Do you need to move? All those kind of things. If it isn't hosted, is it under another privacy, like a US, Canada, Privacy Shield, those kind of things? How does that affect the GDPR?
How close is the Privacy Shield in the US to GDPR?
I think it's stronger in some ways. But yeah, it depends what it is, I suppose, too. It'll be, depends what kind of information it is as well.
Emma says, don't the providers just release something standard? I think some will, I think that some won't.
Yeah.
Does it apply to info from payment gates like PayPal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you'll have people's personal information in that. You've got, their email address, their names, their contact details, that kind of things too.
Jenny says, how will Brexit affect this if you're using a company based within the EU? Well, I presume, we'll be incorporating this as British law.
And I think it's EU, so...
Right now it's an EU directive. Which is going to be incorporated into statute to amend the current Data Protection Act. So will become UK law. Yeah. Regardless of whether or not we're in Europe, it'll become UK law. Yeah. And then I would imagine that each individual country will be taking its own process dependent upon their attachment to the EU as to whether they embed it into their own country's law.
Yeah. I'm not. I know that from the consultation that's still open, the one on children and their data, I know that there was different bits in that about how different countries just now, what their kind of consent ages are and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's not just UK, kind of looking across the board at EU countries too.
Cool. Could I ask, what do you do with an address book? How do you cover that?
I suppose that comes down to, how old is the data within it? How do you still need that data? There's also the thing about if you hold old data, should you be telling people that you still hold their old data? Yeah. If it's business data, then it's probably going to be, the GDPR is more kind of online business information, but still,
you got to be careful.
Yeah.
What do you use, Alison, for PC protection, as in malware?
I have Bitdefender. I'm on a Mac, and I have I'm all Bitdefender actually. Yeah.
Cool.
Another one, Kaspersky is good, and what's the other one? McAfee and all those things too.
Kathy says, Emma, will you be asking Simplero? Yeah, well, I have to comply with it the same way as everyone else, so I've got to do the things that will cover my back, and absolutely, yes, I will be taking steps to look at where my data is held and how it is held moving forward from here. Kat says, are there any specialists who can come in and help you with this? I think, there's people certainly running about being.
There's because you've got, for the ICO you'll have data protection officers, but then there's also talk of different kind of levels of accreditation and stuff like that, so that people come into your business, they can audit your information, they can then give you a I don't know, recommendations for things that you need to do, and then a sign off, I suppose, if you do comply. But yeah, you need to be qualified to do that. You can't just do it for someone and say, I've read it, that's what I think, and you don't have the authority to do that. So
might even get a sticker.
Yeah, sometimes, only if you're very good.
Jane says, I'm in the special category data then. How are you going to approach it without alarming people? If we write to our lists, we could be scaring people and open up a whole can of worms. We got to be honest. We got to go out there and we got to say, this is what's happening. The approach is that that there is a new stance on being more robust with online data, and I want to make sure that your data is safe with me.
Yeah. I think that's, for me, it's about the reassuring people that actually I'm doing this because I value your data, I value your email address. You could almost think about it as real money or something, I suppose. So if you value it in the same kind of way, it's kind of putting it in that way, and not like not scaring people that things might get stolen. It's a more of a, I am doing this to protect you because I value what you give me. Yeah.
And Jo says she's on it. She's adding double opt-in and a button to say that they want to be in, and asked everyone in her courses to make sure they're on the list, and have one overall list, but are checking on a monthly basis and cleaning up. Fantastic. What about the option we have to use Messenger to target audiences in ads? I've talked about this before, and I think that it's icky. To be putting advertisements into inboxes. Because I think that we have to go through that data protection, and that we have to have consent to hit people's inboxes. Yeah. But I presume that is up to Facebook. I don't. So if I'm doing an advert, I untick that box. You will not find me in your messenger ever. Yeah. I think it's horrible, and I never do anything that I don't like. But if you do tick that box, I presume you've got to check with Facebook what their data protection is.
And Facebook will be US based, so it'll be Privacy Shield. So where might there be differences in what you're doing between that and GDPR? What if you're using something like the messenger bots or any of those kind of things? Is that different?
I would presume that the T's and C's of Facebook include this. That when we sign up to be on Facebook, I would presume that there are data terms in there. I signed up to Facebook a long time ago. I haven't read their T's and C's.
Every update there'll be a software update. Will have new T's and C's and things. We just accept them. So
it's like Apple, isn't it? It's like
yes, it's fine.
Another one. Be gone. Brexit again. When we leave, will GDP? It'll become part of our parliamentary positioning, I would think, and it'll update the current Data Protection Act. Michelle says, I pass customer addresses to courier companies. If you ask if they are compliant and they say yes, is that enough?
Is it enough, or do they need to be able to?
Defo.
Yeah, do they need to be able to show you or demonstrate that how they comply? Because it'll be the same for those courier companies. They have personal data. They need to be storing it properly. They've got to go through the whole same process. So they've got to then be able to prove to you as a customer, or show you as a customer, what they're doing with the data you give them as well. So it's that knock-on effect too, isn't it? That anyone that you then give the data to just to do your job is doing the same, because you've kind of got a responsibility to make sure whoever you pass it to is also compliant. Otherwise, you should be passing it to somebody else, I suppose.
Well, even stuff like taking stuff to the post office.
Yeah.
And handing over parcels. It's like, how much do you need to know? And
but big organisations, I suppose, post office, then it's a different level, isn't it? They've definitely got to be compliant with data protection teams, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. So essentially, we need to list everything we use for our business, find out where they are based, and check they'll be compliant, or what other regulations they will use if not, is what MJo's asking.
Yeah. Basically, that's your first steps. So doing any touch point, I suppose, that somebody has with your business, if they're going to be phoning you or emailing you or getting in touch through social media or through your website, whatever else, where are they going to come from, what information you're going to gather, and how is that being held from wherever they come from. And then, looking at, if it's a website, the hosting and all those kind of things, and to where it's held and if it complies. And that's the kind of the process to go through, I guess, with everything and every place that you might store an email address, a name, a phone number, an address, down to things like, where you store forms that people might fill in, for example. So if somebody fills in a form and gives you lots of details about them or their what they're coming to you through your business for, then where do you store that? Do you save it in Dropbox? Is your Dropbox compliant? Or do you save it in Google Drive or OneDrive and, all the other options? And is that compliant? And what are you doing at your end to keep it safe? And what are they doing remotely to keep it safe?
And then we go into, I suppose, password security and things like that.
Yes.
Updating passwords and all of that kind of jazz.
Please, password manager, please.
So what would you be recommending for the storage?
LastPass or 1Password. And I know LastPass can generate random passwords and things, and they're fine. But I tend to go for a longer password with random words in it. So I don't know, I carry the watermelons, or, mixing up different phrases and songs. I carried the Purple Rain watermelons, something like that. Just something that's kind of, nobody's going to hack that.
Bizarre.
But something that that's longer, and because the longer it is, the harder it is to crack too. So, And even say, for example, if you've got a document saved in your Dropbox and it's got all your passwords on it, that's not secure. So, that in itself, is probably something that we should all be doing anyway, using LastPass or a password manager. There's always the other side of it. People think, well, if that's broken into, then that's more of a risk because then someone gets everything. But I think, last year when I did some training on this, I think at that point there had been 3 times, I think LastPass had been tried to be broken into and hacked into, and nothing had ever been stolen because it's so securely encrypted. So it's way safer than anything you could do on a document and saving it on your computer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What about the stuff that you do? Would you avoid saving anything to your hard drive? I
would, yeah. Because then if I'm going out with my laptop or anything like that, then I wouldn't want it to be, a risk if somebody steals it or whatever else. I would always be saving it somewhere that I know is secure online, because then you've kind of done as much as you can to take reasonable steps. Really, that's what it comes down to. So I know wherever you save it, it should be protected. So it's not going to be on my hard drive and then somebody manages to get into my laptop. Well, then if they manage to get into it, they've got access to so much personal data. And that's the other thing as well. We haven't really got into. What's that?
Stuff syncing to your laptop. So if people, if I open up my laptop and I put my password in and in I go, you can get into my Dropbox. You can get into my Sinclairo account. You can get into my. So how does that work?
Again, I suppose the security on your laptop, having a secure enough password so it's not just a Emma, something like that, something that's going to be. And even just if you're somewhere else, just closing the laptop, because then somebody else, they've got to get your password to get in the first place. So that's that first reasonable step, I suppose. You're not sitting in a cafe and just going to walk away and leave it. And the other thing as well, I suppose, if you're out and about in public, not having your Wi-Fi switched on unless you need it, because that's another kind of way that people can get into stuff. But the other thing as well is that, it's not just having all this, because if there is a data breach, once GDPR comes into force, if there is something happens, you've got a responsibility to report it within 72 hours as well. So if you find out that something's been compromised, then you need to be reporting that to the Information Commissioner's office, and then they need to find out what's happened. They need to find out what the risks are. So you need to know all of this stuff so you can say, well, these are the reasonable steps I've taken, and then they can assess that. Yeah, assess the risk. Yeah, you need to tell people as well. So you need to say, a file was broken into, it had your data on it, so you need to know whose data was on it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Judy said we were discussing the child protection aspect yesterday at the steer group meeting, as it's a massive amount of social work data at the school yet. But how is trying to do it yourself better than getting someone who isn't qualified to help me out? Well, at the moment, there isn't anyone qualified.
Yeah, I mean, it's too early, isn't it? Because a lot of it is not finalised, and all the guidance isn't finalised. It's not. Yeah.
Is that? You know, I think that everyone who is giving advice on this, and you know, we're not giving advice, we're going through exactly what we know on it. But the people that are giving advice on it are commentators at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They're commentating on what they're seeing, and what they feel that means.
And the only, and I suppose the Information Commissioner's office is where you should be going for anything, and going from what they tell you, because they're the ones who are responsible for making sure we all comply. So if it's not on there, if there's a different opinion or something that's not on there, then it has
to be questioned.
It has to be taken. It. If you took somebody else's advice, and then you can kind of say, oh, I took, I don't know, an advisor's advice or something like that. Well, are they qualified? Have they given you a sign off? Are they? Yeah, then nobody's going to put themselves in that position really just now.
Jenny says, I use Royal Mail Click and Go to print postage, which pulls the order info from Etsy. Should I be checking with them and with Etsy and advising customers where their information is going when they're buying?
Yeah. I'm sure the Royal Mail will have things on their website, how they're complying with GDPR, absolutely, because they're a massive organisation, obviously. But Etsy as well, I'm sure they'll have stuff as well saying how they're complying too. Yeah.
Do we know if any of the big brands like Dropbox, Google Drive have come out to say that they're GDPR compliant? You'll have to go and do your own research, I think, on all of those.
They have statements and things online, so go and check them out. And like I said before, the version that you're using, make sure the version you're using is one that they say is compliant, or if they're not saying, if they're just saying they will be compliant across the board, then watch, just keep an eye on it really, because then you'll know in the future, between now and 25th of May, which versions, if it's different between different versions.
Yeah. Okay. I have a policy from work that I could lift the wording from to help anyone if they want it. I'd be careful. I'd be careful on that, and making sure that you're getting your own kind of guidance on it, and that you're happy with that. And probably big companies will have great policies, but again, it's about, do they fit your business, and are you thinking through what you need to think through?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you can't give blanket advice to every business, because every business has different data. Yes, we will all have names and addresses and email addresses, but what we use them for and where we keep them and the systems we use are also different. So it has to be, and you have to be able to show that you've done that kind of process, I suppose, for your own business too.
Yeah, and that you've crossed your own I's and dotted your own T's and all of that jazz. Karen says, does my answer phone on my landline need to be compliant if a customer phones and leaves their name and number and possibly medical information? Does that come under GDPR? Comes under general data protection, definitely.
Yeah, because it's still information, isn't it? Yeah. Is it? I don't know. Yeah.
Is Rocket Lawyer the best place to go for your policies on this? Again, you're going to have to do your own research on it at the moment. I don't know if Rocket Lawyer do have any GDPR policies on there yet. I don't know. I haven't.
Probably not. I wouldn't imagine you'll find any policies that are completely up to date, because a lot of the things have still to come out on the guidance. It's not, a lot of it is not finalised.
Mm-hmm. Emma says, I meant about the data breach policy and rules, that's all. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lovely, lovely thing to be able to offer that. But I think that people have got to be really careful that they don't feel like, oh, well, I got this off you and then you get the blame for giving them certain things that don't work for their business. So it's more protecting your back end, Joe, than anything else, and making sure that, you know, people are looking at it from their own slant and their own perspective on this. So let's do a quick roundup. What do we need to think about? One.
Okay. So data. What data are you gathering? Where is it being held? Yeah. Consent. What are people consenting to, and is it actually consent? Can you be reasonably sure that consent has been given for you to be on mailing lists, etc.? Compliance. What are you doing to comply? Are you registered as a data controller? Do you know how to comply if someone wants to find out their own information? Do you know what to do if there is a breach? So how are you complying with the actual rules themselves? And then security, your own security. What are you doing to keep your data safe and keep your software and your hardware and everything secure and safe? And I just saw a question pop up from Claire about, am I using Animail's documents? Yes, I am. And I'm in the group with VAs and a lawyer who are looking at the whole GDPR for VAs and for our own businesses and for clients too.
Cool. And I presume that if you are outsourcing now, you need to be sure that your team are compliant as well.
Yeah, and your team need to be able to tell you as well, this is how we make sure this is the steps we take to make sure we comply, and that we will do that going forward as well. Yeah.
Cool. If there is more than
there's still time, there's 3+ months, there's not there's no panic or scary and all the rest of it, and probably it's always been a kind of a good practice thing that maybe should be,
it's probably something anyway. We've just probably got a bit lazy on because we haven't actually had to kind of approach and time just to really update everything and give it a good jig.
Yeah, just the kind of how are you doing things, and how are you would just kind of, I suppose you'd want someone to do that with your own email address. You'd want to know that it was being kept, it was valued, and it was kept somewhere safe and all the rest of it. And it wasn't just, lying open on a laptop in a coffee shop for someone to see, that kind of thing. It's just that reassurance, isn't it? So it's just, the value you place on it, and then respecting it as you would your own information, I suppose. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I suppose it's about being careful about what you are doing out in public with a laptop open and what people can see from that perspective.
Yeah.
So it's about starting your audit really now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about starting looking at where people come into your business, and where you store things from then on. And it's not just about putting it into a spreadsheet. It's about all the kind of computery systems or whatever else and where it comes in, and just learning that you know where things are.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, it's just about being wise and protecting yourself and protecting other people's information too. Because people give you that and there's value in it. So, respecting it is that, I suppose. Not that we never did, but it's just proven that we do, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's doing what we've always done and how we've always dealt with things. Now we've always felt about people's data, but now having to tick a government box to say, I do that.
That's what we do. Yeah.
Kathy says I'm scared, but at least that spurred me into action. I think don't be scared. I think it's easy to say don't be scared, but it's the same as all of that other stuff that doesn't come naturally, like doing your accounts and that shit, and putting your tax return in, and have I done that right, and have I claimed the right things, and I think that honest intention is really, really important, and showing that you are honestly intending to keep that data safe, that you are intending to look after your clients' data. You've got a paper trail of where you're keeping it all, and it's not actually, whilst it feels like a huge, shut your face. Whilst it feels like a huge big thing, it will be a matter of just starting to take steps.
Oh, it's 10:30, isn't it? It's that time of day.
Throwing her out. It's that time. It's terrier walking past time, and that happens absolutely.
Just noticed that. 10:30.
Terrier walking past time. So there we go. So I think don't be scared of it. Knowledge is power. 1. 2, starting to look at your systems is going to stand you in good stead. 3, you've got 3 months.
Yeah.
And, you know, as we find out more and as we know more, I'm sure that Alison will come back again.
Yeah. If you like.
If we maybe put in an update in mid-April, early to mid-April, then we can go through where we're at that stage and then look at, you know, what additional guidance has been given, what we've done, because we'll have started the process in our businesses much more.
Yeah.
Be able to share that with you. And like I say, if there are things that you are unsure about, take the impetus and go and get your own information and advice on it. Make sure that you are going over and looking at all of the information that's on the Information Commissioner's Office website. Make sure that you're making your own inquiries and that, you know, you've got your own trail there.
You've got time. Yeah, you've got time. You can, just get familiar with it and just set aside a bit of time and just start doing it. And once you start doing it, it becomes easier. And I know that at first I thought this is too big, can't do this, it's just too big. But actually, once you start going, right, okay, so website, it kind of follows on through, and then you know what you need to find out and you know where you're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Alison. It's been lovely to have you. And like I said, we will arrange to come back so that we can talk about it a little bit more as things progress a little bit more. Can we share this? So share it out there. I'm also going to download it and upload it into YouTube as well. So if you want to go back and watch it later, it will be available. And I'll pop it into all of my groups too. So if you're in one of my groups, you can get hold of it. I'm sure Alison will pop it over to her page as well. So if there is anything that comes up for you and you want pointing in the right direction, then do yell, but we will come back and tell you more as we know a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, my darling.
Thank you. Thank you for getting me on the page so we can do this. And
pushing you out of your comfort zone.
See, doing this, talking to someone, that's totally fine. But just talking to a camera just feels a bit like, I don't know. I just put somebody's photo behind my camera. I think that's what I need to do.
When you pretend you're talking to them, well, not scare you or anything like that, but it's already been seen by 7,731 people, so
that's not scary or anything. No. I can feel a coffee coming on.
So I need to go and get a brew, and I'm going for a live Q&A in my hub, so I will
I'll probably see you there.
Thanks so much. Speak to you all really soon.
Thank you. Bye everyone. Bye.